DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that makes any one of us go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into one framework with a bunch of frameworks underneath that, a philosophy, approach, a mindset. We got this daily masterclass to listen to right here. We got a bunch of books on the subject, all under one umbrella that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is be smooth, but don't coast. Now, be smooth, but don't coast is something that if you read my book, Work on Your Game, which I am holding up right here for the camera, if you are watching on video, you can get this book at workonyourgamebook.com. That's a hardcover, 250-page book, by the way. You heard me talk about, I told this story of when I was, actually before I get into it, before I tell the story of where this is coming from, let me tell you I have a text message line. I want you to text me and tell me the most valuable insight you got from today's masterclass. My number is 305-384-6894. Once you text me there, not only will you be able to engage with me directly, you also will be part of my texting community, which means you're going to receive my daily motivation text message, which I send out every single day to everyone who is in my texting community. So if you just want to get that daily motivation text for no other reason, then you need to be texting me right now. Again, the number 305-384-6894. Now, back to the story. In 2005, I was playing pickup basketball at the LA Fitness in the Andorra section of Philadelphia. And that's my hometown, Philly, in case any of y'all didn't know. And after one day of pickup basketball, there was this older guy who I've been playing with. And at the time, I'm 23. This guy was probably about 35, 40-ish. He was somewhere in that age range. You could tell he was an older guy, a really respectful guy. Me and him had been playing on the same team for a lot of that day. And back in the locker room, he didn't know me. This is the first time we had ever seen each other. I'd never seen him before, and I'd never seen him after that. But he approached me in the locker room after the game, and he was complimenting my game and telling me, man, you got a lot of talent. You could do things that nobody else out there on the court could do. But sometimes in the games, you were coasting a little bit. You were kind of not playing hard. You were kind of just getting by, and you were playing hard when you felt like it, and then not playing hard at other times. And he had this phrase that he said, be smooth, but don't coast. And it's the one thing I remember him saying, and it was 15 years later when I sat down to write my book, Work on Your Game. I still remember that man saying that. Don't even know this dude's name. And again, never seen this guy again. Maybe he saw me, but if he does, he should reach out to me so I can talk to him. But when I sat down to write my book, Work on Your Game, and I was just talking about putting that effort out there, putting your energy out there, I remembered this guy telling me this story. And that day, particular day, because we were talking about basketball, and this is 2005, we're talking, remember, he drew a parallel. He used an example, I guess you could say, to help me understand. He said, look at guys like, look at Tracy Mcgrady and Kobe Bryant. Now, these are two guys who, even if you don't play basketball, you probably have an idea who these guys are. These were two of the best players in the NBA at the time. And he said, the thing is, Kobe Bryant is smooth, but he does not coast when he's playing basketball. He said, T-Mac, he's smooth, but sometimes he coasts. And this is something that this guy was not the first person to ever say that. A bunch of critics have said that out loud they said that about Kobe and T-Mac during their playing days. So, and we know Kobe has passed away, but if T-Mac or somebody in T-Mac's camp hears that, I'm not the first person to point it out. He knows that. And whenever I watch old Kobe Bryant videos, I still watch basketball videos to this day, even though I don't play basketball, I notice it, that Kobe Bryant was a super smooth player. I mean, anybody who ever watched him play knows that he was smooth. Even if you don't watch basketball, you know who Kobe is. One reason is that even people who didn't watch basketball could watch him and appreciate it. He was a very smooth player, but he never coasted. And whenever I watch old videos, and I don't watch just like the championship series games and stuff like that. I watch like regular season, middle of the season games that nobody would even remember happened. And those kind of games, when I watch somebody like Kobe Bryant, and you see how hard he was playing in those games and how prepared he was and how mentally locked in he was, that guy in LA Fitness from back in 2005, he was 100% right. Kobe Bryant never coasted. He looked good doing what he was doing. He looked very smooth. He made it look effortless, but he was playing hard doing it all the time. How was he able to do that? That's what we're going to talk about here today, and not just how you can do it in a basketball game, but how you can do it in business, how you can do it in any other sport, and how you can just do it mentally every single day. You can be smooth and make it look easy and have fun doing what you're doing, but at the same time, you're not coasting, and you'll understand what that means by the end of this episode. So let's get into it. Point number one. Topic, once again, is be smooth, but don't coast. First thing, you got to work on your game. You got to have some game. You can't do anything smoothly if you're not actually good at it. You have to have some actual skill. You can't be smooth in performance. You cannot be smooth in delivery, nor can you be consistent nor guarantee delivery if you have no actual skill set. I mean, doesn't that just make sense? And I've told you, my newest book, The Third Day, the decision that separates the pros from the amateurs. I'm holding the book up here to the camera. We got a lot of sunlight glare right now. All right, there it is. The decision that separates the pros from the amateurs. One thing that makes a pro is the fact that their work is guaranteed. All right, you know that they're going to show up and they're going to do the job. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get a specific number of sales every day. Doesn't mean that everybody in the room's life is going to be changed by what they said in the speech. But the fact that they showed up and delivered is guaranteed. And the only way that you can guarantee your work on a consistent basis like that, the way the pros do, is you have to actually have some game. You have to actually have the skill to put your work out there. So what you must do in this first point is you got to develop your ability to do the thing. All right, it's hard to make it look easy if it's actually not easy. So somebody like Kobe Bryant or Tracy Mcgrady, both of those guys are very smooth in playing basketball, and they're scoring 30 points a game. They're dunking on guys, doing all kinds of moves, getting all kinds of highlights, making all-star games, dominating the best basketball players in the world. How were either of those guys able to do that? They were able to do it because they both had a ton of game. They both worked on their games a lot, so they had a lot of skill. In episode 931, I explained to you what is expected of you when the word professional is next to your name, what you need to deliver and what you need to bring to the table. One of the things you need to bring to the table is you got to make the game look easy. It might not necessarily be easy, but you have to make it look easy. When I was playing basketball in Germany in 2008, and his agent took me around to a practice with a team, and he was saying, this is my first time getting with this particular agent. He said, I'm going to bring you to this practice. I want to see with my own two eyes in person how you play. And I participated in the practice. The agent sat there and watched the whole practice. And after the practice, we were at dinner, and I thought I did pretty good in the practice. And we were at dinner, and I'm sitting with the agent, and he said, well, no, Dre, I wasn't very impressed with your performance today. I was kind of disappointed with your performance. And I was surprised to hear him say that. I said, excuse me? Because I thought I played well in the practice. And he said, well, look, in that drill where you were going against the German player, you were working too hard to try to score points on him, and then you were having to work too hard to stop him on defense. Even though, now mind you, in this drill that he was referring to, it was like a one-on-one drill. So I had 5 chances to score. I scored on this kid all 5 times. I went 5 for 5 scoring, and then when I was playing defense, the kid with the ball, he went 0 for 5. So I stopped him every time, and I scored on him every time. It was perfect. It was a perfect score, literally. And this guy said it wasn't impressive enough because I didn't make it look easy. He said you were working too hard to get your success. And I always kept that. That is another thing that always stayed in my mind. So I have a long memory for certain things. And that's something else that even once I got into the professional world, which is why in episode 931, I talked about that a couple of years ago. What's expected of you in professionals next to your name? You got to make it look easy. Because if someone walks in the room and we say that person's a professional, they're one of the best in the world at doing their thing, that sets a certain expectation. It creates a certain picture in people's minds that they're going to make things look easy, even if it is not actually easy. Because you're the pro, and all of us peasants down here in the audience watching you, we're not as good as you. You're going to make it look a lot easier than we can make it look. That's part of the expectation. Even though that might not be written down, that's part of the unwritten contract of being a pro, is that you can make it look easy even though it's not easy. So the first thing, you got to have skill. With no skill, you can't make anything look easy. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is be smooth, but don't coast. Number 2, how do you do this thing, though? Like what I was talking about with Kobe Bryant, how he showed up every single day. And every time I watch a video, again, these random regular season games when Kobe's playing for the Lakers, why was he playing so hard on all these random nights when not every player does that? And listen, I played professional basketball. Not every player shows up and plays hard every day, even though we're getting paid to literally play a game for a living. You got to have a reason to do so. Just because you're getting paid is not a good enough reason because you already got the money. All right, the contract is already coming in. The pay is already there. All right, check's already in the mail. So the money is not the thing that's driving you, because the money's coming one way or another. Now, it's possible you get released if you don't play good enough, but that's not a good enough reason, because at some point you have money. So it's not money that's driving you anymore. What else is going to drive you? Is it the attention, or you already got the attention? Even if you stop playing, you got the attention. So it can't be that. What's going to be your reason? This right here, this question is part of the third day mentality. Your answer to the question. All right, the question is part of the third day mentality, and your answer is part of the third day mentality. You have to answer that question for yourself. I can't answer it for you. The decision that separates the pros from the amateurs. What keeps you coming every day, showing up and going hard, even though the very thing that got you in there in the first place, maybe it was to get the attention, maybe it was to prove that you could get there, maybe it was to make money. Okay, now you already got those things. Now what? Now what's going to drive you? This is the hardest part, and the final hump of being the best at what you do is that you got to do it every time. It's one thing to be able to do it. It's another thing to do it every single time. I want y'all to understand the difference between those two things, and there is a clear difference between the two. Able to do it means you have the capability of being a pro. You have the capability of being at the highest level, and maybe you are already there. But doing it every single time is what makes you great. Doing it every single time is what makes you a legend. Doing it every single time is what makes you the best of the best. Now, at the professional level of anything, everybody who's at the pro level can do the thing. Everybody is capable of performing at a really high level on any given day at the pro level. Everybody who's a pro is capable of that. Now, the thing is, why doesn't everybody do it every single time then? Why doesn't every pro perform at their highest level every single time out? Or at least attempt to perform at their highest level every single time out? That is the question. Here is the answer. The answer is they haven't answered the question as to why they would do so. Because they have the money, they got the job title, they have the attention, they have already made it to the top of the mountain. Okay, some people, that's all that matters to them. Once they get there, they coast from that point. As long as they can stay there, they'll coast at that point. And there are a few exceptional people who can push themselves to go that hard, even though all the trappings of success, so to speak, that come with being at that level, they've already acquired all of them, but they still go hard anyway. You got to be an exceptional person, you got to do exceptional things. And there are a few exceptional people who can figure out a reason to keep going, even though they already got the outcomes. They already got the things that a lot of people from the outside looking in think are the drivers of that success. They already got them, but they're doing it anyway. This is the hardest part of being the best of the best, is doing it every day. Not proving that you can, but actually doing it every single time. This is the last hump that you have to go over. I've heard analysts and scouts talk about this all the time in the sports world. The last hump of being the best of the best in sports is understanding that every single day, when everybody knows you're the best and everybody's trying to stop you and gunning for you, you have to be your best anyway. And that's very, very hard to do. It's a physical challenge, it's a mental challenge. And that's in the business world is a challenge, and the sports world is a challenge, and everyday life, it's a challenge. And this is why so few people are capable of doing it, because it's every day pushing yourself to that level. Why? If you're that good and you deliver that well just a few times, you're gonna make money, you're gonna get attention, you're gonna have everybody's respect, you're gonna have proven it to yourself already. Why keep pushing yourself after all that? Why? What's the point? And that's the question that many people never answer. And this is why very few people, and that's why I keep saying you had to be an exceptional individual to have answered this question satisfactorily enough that you keep pushing yourself anyway. And understand, as I talk about in the third day, you cannot depend on motivation for this, because motivation comes and goes. All right, some days you might be motivated, some days you're not. You can be motivated 3 days in a row, but eventually, whatever that thing was that motivated you, eventually it loses its effect. All right, you can't keep getting motivated by the same thing over and over again. How are you going to get yourself ready to go every day? This is the existential question of professional performance. That question right there. When you can answer it, combined with having some actual skill, that's when you have the potential to be exceptional. Now you got to actually do it. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is be smooth, but don't coast. Do not measure yourself by the competition. Measure yourself by your own standards, which in turn will take you past the competition anyway. So you're not looking at the other guys that you already beat, or even the guys that are beating you right now. You're not measuring yourself by them. Now, you could use them but they're not the ultimate measuring stick. You can use them in the moment, or you're going against them today. You're playing for the Knicks and playing against the Trailblazers. Okay, you want to beat the best player on the Trailblazers, fine. Do that today. But understand your overall standard is not based on the players on the other teams or what the other businesses in town are doing. Your ultimate standard is about what you are capable of doing. And when you measure yourself by your own personal standards, in turn, that will take you past all the competition anyway. So you don't even have to worry about competing against them. You're going to pass them anyway by just competing against yourself. Michael Jordan, who I detailed in my Virtual Mentors number 5, episode 1217. That is one of my favorite episodes. If you haven't listened to that one, again, it's episode 1217, Michael Jordan. He talked about how his standards as a player were never about the other players. Even though Michael Jordan is known, famous for being a fierce competitor and wanting to beat everybody, even though that, Michael Jordan always maintained that his standards weren't about the guys. It wasn't about Karl Malone and Clyde Drexler and Charles Barkley and Patrick Ewing. It wasn't about them. His standard was about how good can Michael Jordan be. And in the process of being as good as Michael Jordan could be, he beat Clyde Drexler, Patrick Ewing, Karl Malone, Charles Barkley. They were just stepping stones in the process of him getting to where he really wanted to go, which is maximizing his own potential. And he always said that it was always about me being the best that I could be. And that just so happened to take me past all those other guys. So even after, and the proof is in the pudding with Michael Jordan, even after he had already won, he was at the top of the mountain, he had proven he was better than everybody, and everybody recognized that he was better than everybody, he kept winning anyway. Why keep winning? What was the drive that kept him to continue to go even after he had already beaten everybody that was supposedly his competition? Why did he keep going? The reason he was able to keep going is because his standard was not about beat them. His standard was about beat myself. So that's how he was able to keep himself driven, even though he already had the success. He already had all the trophies. Everyone said, all right, Michael, you're the best. You proved it. You don't have nothing left to prove. And then he went out there and acted like he had something to prove, even though he had nothing left to prove. Why? Because he had a different standard than what everybody else had. So even after winning, he kept winning, and his team kept winning, because it wasn't about the other guys. It was about himself. This is what happens when you measure yourself by your own standards. Now, you get to decide your standards, folks. You get to decide, what am I capable of? What is acceptable for me? What's unacceptable for me? What level can I actually get to? How far can I actually go with this? How high can I actually go with this? You get to decide that. You decide what your standard is and how far you can go and what you're going to demand of yourself. And if you set the standard high enough, it will, again, in the process of you going after that standard and living up to that standard, you will automatically surpass all the quote-unquote competition, because they're not really competition. If you're going after your own standard, you're not competing against them. You're competing against yourself. This is an easy way to go over the top of the problem of coasting. I talked about going over the top also in my book, Work on Your Game. I talked about it again in the third day when we talk about the concept of anchors. Having something that is pulling you towards where you want to go, that is so much bigger than the challenge, quote unquote, that might be in front of you or is in front of the average person, that you don't even notice that you're going over the top of the challenge while you're going after the bigger thing. When you go over the top of the problem, you're not even focusing on the problem anymore, but you're already solving it, because you're solving a bigger issue that knocks everything else down. It's kind of like the big domino idea that some people talk about in marketing, or some people talk about in productivity. What's the one thing that I can get done? And if I do this, then every other thing gets taken care of automatically and in the process. That's what Michael Jordan was talking about. He didn't call it the big domino, but it's the exact same thing. He didn't call it going over the top of the problem, but it's the exact same thing. Point number 4. Today's topic, once again, is be smooth but don't coast. Number 4, do the hard work in the dark that makes it look easy in the light. This is the work of the third day. Do the hard work when nobody's watching, so that when everybody's watching, you can make it look like it's just natural. You can make it look like it's just talent. Make it look like you just rolled out of bed and it's easy. Make it look like you're born with it, but maybe it's Maybelline. All right, in episode 1902 and 1903, I talked about the third day in sports and in business. If you want to shine in the light, you got to sweat in the dark. All right, I talked about that in those 2 episodes. This is a discipline that requires high levels of mental toughness, because your work to performance ratio is usually going to be somewhere, if you want to do this, your work to performance ratio is going to be somewhere around 10-1, meaning 10 hours of work in the dark with no attention to 1 hour of performance in the light with everybody watching. And after you get done that 1 hour performance of everybody watching, now you got to do another 10 hours of no fanfare work in order to get another 1 hour of attention. Now, how many times are you willing to put in that 10 to get that one? And those start adding up. All right, how many performances do you want to do? It's a lot of work you're going to have to put in order to earn those performances. Those numbers start to add up real quick. 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10. All right, those are all hours you got to put in. All right, it sounds good when we're talking about it. Not so fun to execute when you're on that third day. And if you've been there, then you know what I'm talking about. Do you want to go back? Are you willing to go back? Many people are unwilling to do that much work without recognition. And they eventually fall off because the competition gets stiffer. They're not continually putting in that work. And eventually the competition gets too strong for them to get by on just coasting. And because they're not putting in that 10-to-1 work, they're not strong enough to keep up with the competition. Eventually they get stuck at a certain level, and that's as far as they go. And so it goes. Point number 5. Today's topic, once again, is be smooth, but don't coast. You got to remember to keep your foot on the gas. All right, this is the thing that most impressed me when I look at those Kobe videos from his active playing days, is that this guy just kept his foot on the gas. This guy he didn't take nights off. Even people who were critics of Kobe, I've read them talk about it, and they said, like, the one biggest compliment I can give this guy is that anytime I go see him play or watch him play, he never takes the night off. He never takes a game off. He never coasts through a game. He plays hard every single game. He keeps his foot on the gas. The definition of coasting is to move easily without using power. That's the definition of coasting. This is one that you have to make conscious, this idea of not coasting, because if you can move easily without using power, why use power? I mean, it's kind of like if you're on a bicycle and the bike is going downhill, you don't have to pedal the bike for the bike to go down. I mean, when I'm riding my bike over to Miami Beach, over to South Beach, across the 395 causeway, when I get up to the peak of the hill, when you're first going over 395, right when you're passing past the Pam Art Museum here in Miami, over Biscayne Bay, and then the bike starts to go down, I don't have to pedal at all. The bike will go on its own all the way down that hill. You don't need to put any energy into it. It's going to go and it's going to pick up speed in the process. And this is what many people do. They start coasting, they're moving easily, and they're not using any power. And why pedal? What's the point? And this is the question many people ask. They don't come up with an answer, and this is why they coast. Because they don't have a reason to put energy behind it, so they don't do it. When you have game, this is your situation. When you have enough game, you can get the job done without trying too hard, especially relative to other people who don't have the kind of game that you have. This is the question that many people never answer, thus they start coasting, and then they never come up with a reason to stop coasting. But to get the most out of yourself, you have to resist the natural tendency to coast. The natural tendency is don't use energy when you don't need to. Human beings, we are inherently lazy. I told you this in episode 1772. People don't think, people don't read, and people are lazy. These are just our inherent traits to not do these things. So if you want to be exceptional, you want to be different from most people, you have to you have to counteract your natural human tendencies, which is to be lazy and to conserve energy as much as possible and put out energy even where most normal people would conserve energy. If you want to be exceptional, you have to do exceptional things. Now, the question is, do you want to be an exceptional person? Now, I know a bunch of people who are listening to me right now, you want to be exceptional. You want to be different. Of course you do when we're talking about it, but don't tell me about it. And you ain't got to show me. You need to show yourself through your actions, through how you show up every single day at work, how you show up every day in business, how you show up every day in your relationships, how you show up every day in the things that you claim matter to you. Are you showing up every day and delivering? Answer through your actions, not through your words. So word talk is cheap. Let's recap today's class, which is be smooth, but do not coast. Shout out to that guy at LA Fitness. Don't even know this man's name. 15 years ago, he told me this in the locker room after watching me play pickup with him one day. He said that to me, be smooth, but don't coast. I never forgot that advice. Point number 1, work on your game. You cannot be smooth in performance or delivery if you do not have skills. Develop your ability to do the thing because it's hard to make it look easy when it's not actually easy. Point number 2, have a reason every day. This is what the third day is about. This is the hardest part of being a top level pro, is that you got to be good every single time, not just when you feel like it, not just when you're motivated. This is the existential question of professional performance. How can you get yourself ready to go at your best every single time? Number 3, Do not measure yourself by the competition. Michael Jordan said his standards were never about the other guys. It was about me being the best that I could be. And by doing that, he automatically beat all his opponents. He went over the top of the problem. Point number 4, do the hard work in the dark that makes it look easy in the light. We talked about this in episodes 1902 and 1903. This is a discipline that requires a high level of mental toughness because your work to performance ratio as a pro is going to be about 10 to 1 or higher, even higher than that. Many people are unwilling to work that hard without that much recognition, and eventually they fall off because the competition gets tougher. And number 5, remember to keep your foot on the gas. The definition of coasting is to move easily without using power. When you are a pro, it is very easy to coast because you're so good, you can get the job done without trying hard. But the people who want to be the top pros have to try hard even though they could get it done without trying hard. This is the exceptionalism mindset that you have to do something different than what your natural human tendencies are. Natural human tendency is to conserve energy and be lazy. If you want to be exceptional, you have to go against that tendency. And that's what it is. Send me a text. Tell me the best insight you got from today's class. My number is 305-384-6894. If you are looking for someone who can help coach you, guide you, mentor you towards making the most of yourself so you can stop coasting and you can get the most out of your game and you can maybe be one of the top at what you do. I'm already working with several people who fit this description. If you feel like you fit that description and you're looking for someone who can help you get there, then you might be a good candidate for the 3rd Day Mastermind. And it's the only place to offer direct one-on-one coaching. The only way to get into that mastermind is you must get on a call with me because I want to know who you are. I want to know what you're about. I want to know where you're at, where you want to go, and then we can see if I could possibly help you get there. The only way to get on that call is go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, click the button that says join the mastermind, or there's a link right down below in the show notes for where you're listening to this. Fill out that quick form. We'll schedule a Zoom call. We'll talk about what we need to talk about, and then we'll go from there. Or not. Work on your game. Dre, all